G'day guys and welcome back to the Boundary Riders YouTube channel. Today we are here to look over some new trade rumours that are coming through for the AFL for 2023. Got my podcast host in Jackpot Junkies or Jack over on Instagram, so make sure to check him out. I'm going to be going over through trade rumours today, which I don't actually know you think you may not know. I think there may be a few that you do.
Yeah.
So we'll go through them today, and we'll start with... I've got a few listed here, so they're not exactly going to be in order of like when they recently came out. But first off, I wanted to talk about James Jordan. Now, he's a Melbourne player who was the sub in the 2021 Grand Final. He's been in and out of the side in the VFL side. Actually played well this week for the Demons over the Saints. And he's actually been linked to, because he's a free agent, he's been linked to Essendon and the Gold Coast. Now, have you heard about the James Jordan?
No, but I'm not that surprised by that because obviously, like you've said, he's been in and out all season. He just can't seem to get that 20 in the best 22. So
Seems a little bit like the Paddy Dow one.
Yeah. But so he's getting game time. Jordan in that team, in the Melbourne team.
Yeah, exactly. But that is one that they have been talking about. Another one I want to talk about is actually Jake Riccardi. So Jake Riccardi, a GWS forward, was actually out of the side for a lot of the season, but has came back in the past month and has actually been performing some really good football for the Giants up forward. He is actually being linked to Hawthorn.
Yeah, I knew this. I knew this one about Riccardi. So yeah. I didn't know it was Hawthorn that were the front runners.
But it will be interesting to see because we've already heard about Harry Himmelberg. We did do a video of trade rumours, which we won't actually be talking about today because we've already gone over them, but I'll leave like a card in the top left-hand corner of this video if you guys want to go check out those trade rumours. But yeah, Harry Himmelberg's obviously being linked to a lot of clubs. Obviously, he's playing as a defender, and I think he would be recruited as a defender.
Yeah.
But to lose two key pillars of their team in a trade period would be pretty massive for the Giants.
Yeah.
So I think they'd be doing everything they can to hold at least... I think they'd probably hold a little bit more Jake Riccardi, just because I think it'd be a lot cheaper, and they do need to release a little bit of salary cap issues with the Giants. So, but what would you think like the probability of him going would be?
I think it's more less that he'll go. I think like you said, the Giants will throw a lot more at trying to throw more power at the Riccardi than losing Himmelberg.
Yeah, just because I think they'd get a lot more. They got a lot more money cemented on Harry Himmelberg.
Yeah.
If they had to keep him. Next up, these are two that we've pretty much heard of a lot, and a lot in recent times. In fact, one is of course Mason Redmond, and the other one being Asava Radicalea. We'll start with Redmond. He's been linked to both SA clubs, but he's probably been linked a lot more to the Crows. I think this is still on a knife's edge. I think this is 50-50 on the Redmond trade if he stays at Essendon or goes back to South Australia.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a knife's edge, but if I'm Essendon, you're throwing the checkbook at him.
Yeah,
they need to keep Redmond on their books.
Yeah, and maybe just letting him... If they have to let go of a player to then keep him and give him a little bit more extra salary, I think Darcy Parish or a midfield type like that, or maybe even a Dylan Shield may have to look at getting go. But then we'll move on to Asava Radicalea. Now, obviously, last year in the trade period, Port Adelaide were linked to Asava for a lot of the trade period. It just didn't go through. But there still are a lot of talks that Port Adelaide is still talking to Radicalea's management. As a Port Adelaide fan, you've told me that the Port Adelaide needed like a real key defender. We've seen that Asava has been a really good key defender this year for Geelong. Do you think if Port Adelaide had to choose between someone like a Ben Mackay or Asava Radicalea, who would you be choosing?
They're in the top 5 of the most conceded goals against, so it doesn't read well, but I think more Radicalea. It's a bit hard to say about Mackay.
He's been up and down in form this year, Mackay.
Up and down at Mackay. I think how Geelong have made Radicalea change into a defender. There's just more upside to it.
Yeah.
I think that
he could also play forward if Port Adelaide had to play him up there. So there is a little bit more of like a positional change.
We saw last season when they tried to go Mackay up forward for North Melbourne, it didn't work, and it just it ended no.
He went straight back to the back. He went straight back.
Yeah.
Into defence.
He couldn't kick a goal to save his own life. So
yeah. So next up, this is one that really hasn't been talked about a lot, and probably until about the last week or so, which is obviously West Coast are looking to have to clear out a lot of their experienced players in the next, probably this year, to clear out to get some more draft picks. And one that has been talked about a lot is Tom Barrass. Now, one club in particular that looks like have been looking at him, according to AFL Trade Rumours Drafts and off-season news. This isn't Scoops. I don't know if you know who that is, but it's not him, so don't worry. I know a lot of people could be saying that, but it's not him. He was the one who said that Jack Lukosius was leaving the Gold Coast, and then 2 days later...
He signed, didn't he?
He signed, so... Yeah, but anyway. Tom Barrass has been linked to Sydney.
Yeah, I heard this one. Yeah. I think
as a Swans fan, I know Swans have been linked to a few defenders as well. I think this would be a great move for the Swans to get Tom Barrass, because I don't even know if Paddy McCartan's going to come back. Let's say, I don't know. I'd love to see him come back, obviously, but I still think the Sydney needs some defensive players running back there, and I think that Tom Barrass is a very, very good player.
Yeah.
And I still think he performs well for West Coast, but I think that if West Coast have to let go of some big players, Tom Barrass probably is one that they probably would let go, and I'd really love to see him come to the Swans. After that, we get to one that's been around for a lot of the week, but was shut down pretty quickly, was Orazio Fantasia.
Yeah.
Now, he was obviously linked to going back to the Bombers by Sam McClure, I believe, and then immediately came out the next day and said, I don't want to leave. The reason why I haven't been playing in the side is because I've been injured, bro. Get off my back. I doubt this very highly that he would be leaving, especially because he came back to South Australia to play in a club that he, near his family.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if he'd want to go back to Essendon.
Yeah, he's played 19 games in 3 seasons because of injury.
Yeah,
it wasn't anything else.
Yeah, it's not much form involved in that. So I would be very, very surprised if Orazio Fantasia has talked about much of leaving at the end of the year. I think what could happen is because he's been so injury prone, he still hasn't been signed yet. There could be a potential that maybe Port Adelaide delist him, but I don't know if that would happen. Because he is out of contract. Next up is Max Holmes from Geelong. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't. What are you talking?
So Max Holmes has actually been a target of Collingwood. He's been talked about that Max Holmes could be linked to Collingwood at the end of the year. Reports are saying that he has signed a 2-year deal in last July, but it hasn't deterred a lot of clubs from asking the question as to whether he would consider a move later this season. Collingwood is among a handful of teams that is understood to have inquired about Holmes when he came out of contract last year, but he ultimately elected to stay and re-sign at GMHBA Stadium with Geelong. I really don't see Max Holmes leaving because I think that Geelong need to hold as many as these young guys as they can, as the young midfield, because obviously Dangerfield, Guthrie, Duncan, Selwood obviously left last year. They needed to keep as many as their talented young midfielders as they can. But, there are people still inquiring about him, so you have to talk about it a little bit. I think this is definitely on the lower end of probability, though.
Yeah, it's very minimal. I don't think it will happen, so...
But nonetheless, another one here is Port Adelaide have emerged as a suitor for Darcy Fort. Now, Darcy Fort has been in and out of the Brisbane lineup, but there is talks that Port Adelaide are looking for another ruckman with Lysette ageing a bit. And there's also talks that Lysette has also been linked to Collingwood as a potential ruckman. Now, I don't know how many reports have been seen about that. Have you heard about Lysette looking?
No, because I thought he's more closer to retirement than moving back to Melbourne when he's an SA boy. So I doubt that's going to happen. But the Darcy Fort one's interesting because of the fact is that Port Adelaide have obviously been hit with injuries to their ruck stock. So
yeah, and we saw this week they're using Sam Hayes. The last week they were using Vincentelli or whatever his name is.
Vincentelli or something, yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a couple more years. Then also got Teakle and May came on, but he was injured as well. So Port Adelaide don't exactly have a lot of ruck stocks, and I think Darcy Fort will be a great inclusion because he's a good finisher as well. He can go forward.
Yeah, and we have seen when he's in the Brisbane team that he can play as a second tall if you want to go double ruck in a game. So it can work for him, and like you said, he's a good forward.
And the last one I wanted to talk about today is a couple of Gold Coast players. Now, the Gold Coast actually are in a pretty good salary spot right now, considering they lost Jack Bowes and their pick six in the last year's trade period because they had to clear out a lot of space. But now they're actually in a really good spot. But there is 3 potential academy players that they are looking at the end of the season. Yeah. One is Jed Walter, one is Jake Rogers, and another one is Ethan Reid.
Yeah.
So all of them the Gold Coast are looking at, and because they're all potential top 20 draft picks,
they're going to need
some space to pick all them up. Because obviously when you get picked up as a draftee, there's a lot of money that has to be paid to those kids. So 3 players that have been talked about is Elijah Hollins, Sam Flanders, and Caleb Graham. Sam Flanders hasn't really been linked to anyone along as Caleb Graham. They haven't really linked to anyone, but you do know that they're on the fringes of the Gold Coast team. At the moment, they're actually in the VFL. They're on top spot, so they have got a very good young list as potential players to come in. Sam Flanders has actually made himself into the side in the past few weeks, but it will be interesting to see if he wants to stay. But one player that has been linked to a club is Elijah Hollins, and he's been linked to Richmond. Now, we've seen Richmond in the past pick up a lot of Gold Coast players. We've seen Dean Prestier and Tom Lynch, to name a few. And it will be interesting to see if Elijah Hollands would want to go. Because last year he came onto the scene after being in his draft year, the year before being injured. He came onto the scene, seemed like he was going to be a really good player, but hasn't really had a spot in the side this year.
Yeah.
So if the Gold Coast are going to be clearing out some space, I'm not too sure about Elijah Hollands, but I think Sam Flanders is definitely a chance to go at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Considering everyone thought he was going to come on this year, and he didn't really. He's kind of came on in the past few weeks, but if they're going to need some space for these young academy players who I think are a little bit more important because these guys have been born and bred up in the Gold Coast. These guys aren't as prone to be leaving as, say, some Victorian kid.
Yeah.
I don't know about getting rid of Elijah Hollands. Maybe Sam Flanders and Caleb Graham, but Elijah Hollands is a big loss considering he was a top 10 draft pick.
I think, if you're Gold Coast, you're trying to get Hollands to stay. Sam Flanders, he's had the ability to go midfield in the VFL team.
But he is expendable, I think.
Yeah, I think you can get rid of him if you want to get some cap space. And Caleb Graham, he's always going to be the fourth in line.
Yeah, we've seen that Charlie Ballard's really came on this season, as well as Sam Collins, who's always been a very good defender, and even Will Powell. Yeah. So I don't think there's really a spot for him unless there's a big injury for the Gold Coast. So I would be interested to see if any of those two go. But nonetheless, guys, that is all the trade rumours that we have so far. Like I said, we do have one video up right now. It's already came out like a couple of weeks ago about other trade rumours and stuff, which we didn't cover in this video because I didn't really want to go over stuff that we've already gone over. So if you want to check that one out, we just put a card in the top right-hand corner right there. Thanks for watching today, guys. Make sure to let me know down below what trades you would like to see made by your clubs this season. And that's all from us, so we'll catch you all next time.
See you later, guys.